With Data Futurology's in-person Advancing AI event coming up in April, we wanted to share one of our favourite episodes from last year's Advancing AI series. We hope you enjoy this brilliant chat between Ganji, Head of Data Science and AI at ANZ, and Felipe on the crucial steps to successfully scale AI.
I wanted to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading data specialist recruitment business. They are experts in recruitment strategy and delivery for analytics and data teams. They are the go-to recruitment business for all your data roles in Australia, and they can help both with permanent hires and short-term project-focused data resources. I've used Talent Insights in the past, and I've always found them fantastic to work with. Visit them at talentinsights.com.au. Good morning and welcome to another episode of Data Futurology. As you know, we've been doing our series focusing on advancing AI. So this is covering the topics and the challenges that leaders have in either adopting AI for their organization or scaling, increasing the use and scaling models and production. So it's been an excellent series. We've done 13 episodes. Well, this is episode 13 of the series. And today we're going to be talking about scaling AI, super important topic. And we've touched on parts of it in previous episodes because it's such an important part of the challenge that leaders are facing today in Australia and New Zealand. What we've seen from the polls over the last 12 weeks is that most people have 0 to 5 models in production, and they're looking for ways to be able to put more models in production and for the models that are there to increase the use, to increase the business value, increase the adoption. So this today's discussion is focused on all that segment, which is really great. I need to do two things. One is say thank you to our sponsors who support us in providing this content for the AI community. So thank you very much to Yellowfin, Databricks, Ambiata, and Talent Insights. So everyone who's in the audience, wherever you can, show them some love. They've been supporting us for a long time to bring you this content for free, which is excellent. And without any further ado, today's guest, we have Ganji, who's the head of data science and AI at ANZ Bank. I've known Moha for a while. I'm super excited to have you on the show. Moha, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks, Felipe, and hi to everyone in the audience. Thank you for having me on this series. Lucky last,
but lucky last, and such an important topic. And I know that you have lots of amazing experience that we'll get to. But to kick us off, I wanted to ask you if you can tell us about your. Maybe we start with your role at ANZ. What that covers, and we can take it from there, just to use the role as context setting.
Sure, definitely. So I am currently head of data science and AI for home loans business at ANZ in the Australian retail business. And basically my role, we are looking to leverage data in the business to help the business to make in their decision making, as well as help improve customer experience and the service to customers. Also, we are looking into building data capability and promote data-driven culture in the business. My role basically involves a lot in driving, setting home loan data strategy and developing execution plan and a roadmap. And basically to make that happen, a lot of my role involves in working with senior executives, with partners across the bank, with central functions, technology, with other parts of the business, as well as my team, to make sure that we progress towards achieving that goal and vision for the home loans tribe in terms of the data and AI.
Really
looking
broad.
into
Sorry,
also building capability, while we also deliver value and realize value out of our analytics initiatives. So that's in a nutshell. I can talk a little bit about the team and basically what the streams of work we have.
Yeah, that sounds great. So it's amazing that it's such a broad role in the sense of the technical leadership, solving problems on sort of the applied ML and AI side, then dealing with stakeholders, managing requests, etc. But then and obviously getting them involved in the process and getting them excited. And on top of that, looking after the strategy and how looking forward into the future about what could be done better, how to bring that into reality. It's a huge role. Yes. So no, well done. Really, really exciting. There's lots there for us to discuss. Before we jump in, and I'll ask you to tell us about the team and the structure. Before we jump into that, I'll just mention that I'll open the poll for people to have a few minutes to answer the poll. So we have 4 short questions. 3 of them are just yes or no. So take a second to answer the poll over the next few minutes as we keep hearing from Moha. So Moha, tell us, how big is your team and how is it structured?
Sure. So it's a sizable team at the moment. Last year when I joined, it was around 30, and now we've grown into 50, soon to be 55. And basically, it's a diverse range of skills and roles within the team, from data analysts to data scientists, data engineers, software developers, as well as we do have campaign analysts as well. The way the data team is structured is that we are looking after 5 main streams in the business, basically aligned with touch points on the customer journey as well. So we want to, first of all, when they are looking at purchasing or looking for buying a property or a home, we do have an AI product. Is a property price prediction platform that helps guide them what sort of price they might be looking at, and that would feeds into our property profile report, which complements that price prediction with lots of other useful information in there. So that's our first stream up when customers or prospective customers are looking to buy and looking at property market. Then we have another stream looking after marketing, basically, so using data and analytics and data science in marketing domain. That is including using data for driving and evaluating customer propositions, customer segmentation, as well as predictive modeling for specifically around one-to-one marketing areas. We also do build campaigns and do PIRs in my team as well. Moving from the second stream, we have up next the business intelligence and management reporting. So making sure that both our senior stakeholders as well as the broader business have the data and insight and actionable insight that they need in the stance of a few clicks to them. And the idea there is to make that single source of truth for those reportings and information and insight, as well as making it in a way that it is self-service manner, so people can answer questions by going in there and basically clicking a few clicks, they can answer their questions. Then the fourth stream is automation. So automation has always been in the agenda. However, since last year, with things that happened with COVID probably, but also interests being at all-time low, and ANZ gaining some more market share. We have been receiving an increase in the application volume, and that put pressure on our operational processes, especially on a broker channel. So that has helped us to, or triggered speed up in the automation program to make sure the service levels we can maintain for customers. It is interesting, though, how much automation is enabled and dependent on quality data, on digitized data, and integrated sort of data flow in your systems and processes. So that's absolutely part of what my team is doing in the automation program, as well as, for example, if I want to mention an AI use case, for example, using AI in processing documents and OCR capability is definitely one example in there. From there, the last but not least is customer remediation, and basically looking into the mistakes of the past. And the aim there is to scale investigating into those problems and scale remediating customers, but also putting controls and monitoring in place that make sure we avoid mistakes in the future. So that's basically 5 streams summarizing some of the key pillars of what my team is focused on.
That's amazing. That's incredible. And we have a question from Jason. Hey, mate. Which is related. So he asks, how do you manage all the streams, and do they cross-pollinate or coordinate? And if so, how is that achieved? Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So as I mentioned, they are obviously in different domains, and there is a level of domain expertise required for each of these, even though it's all within the home loan context. But for example, domain in marketing might be a little bit different to the domain that is in remediation, which requires a depth of knowledge in the home loan products and the systems and so on. However, there's a lot of overlaps, obviously, and we want to promote the culture that everyone shares and learns from each other. And obviously, no matter which part of these streams you're in, there is something that if you learn from other streams, there is a value add for what you do today. And another thing that we do is also we promote people moving between streams as well. So creating opportunity for people to either step up or sideways move to other, or secondment even style within the team to go and move to different domains to gain different experiences. Obviously, all of these streams at a high end are trying to achieve and work towards a set of business objectives, and they need to work together to achieve that. So that's in summary. I think hope that answers question, Jason.
Yeah, definitely. And are there any other efforts or opportunities for the different streams to cross-pollinate? So besides rotating people in a secondment style, do they come together or
yeah, exactly. So for example, the price prediction platform that is actually directly feeding into one of our marketing assets, which is our property profile report. So there are definitely interrelation within the different streams feeding into each other, and and obviously the reporting pipeline and the report management reporting that serves everyone and all the streams. So definitely there is a strong relation between all these.
That's great. Yeah, that's a really good way to do it, to make the customers of one stream is a customer of another stream. So that drives that creates that closeness.
Or the partners.
Yeah, amazing. And before you mentioned that you're working also on the strategy side. That's really interesting. Could you tell us more about the work that you're doing there?
Yeah, sure. So I guess when I say strategy, I mean basically looking into where we are and where we need to be and where we want to be in a set point in time, and basically planning towards what we need to do and what the steps we need to take to get there. And for that, I think I might probably be best to highlight the point that I think it's true for any context when it comes to strategy, but more, and even like definitely so true for data space, that it can't be achieved in isolation. So there's no point in having a 50-page strategy document sitting somewhere in a share folder and no one looks at it and no one is aware of what is the plan and what is that North Star that we are heading towards and what needs to be done to get there. So it is absolutely important to communicate that with senior stakeholders, executives, as well as all the partners and enablement functions, and definitely with your team to see where we are heading to. But in terms of some of the pillars that I think are very important and I think very relevant to the topic of today as well, that I generally look at is, first of all, what are those business objectives that we are trying to influence or shift the dial on using analytics, using AI. It is very important to be super clear about those objectives and those metrics and how we're going to measure the success around those. And then based on those objectives, what are some of the key initiatives or categories of initiatives or directional, or even capabilities that we need to build to get there. So that comes down to a set of initiatives. Obviously, the prioritization of those come into play for that matter. And basically, once you are clear about what is that you're going to achieve and through which set of initiatives or programs or projects and at which scale you're going to achieve them, then it comes to look into a couple of enablement pillars to enable you to achieve that objective or improve or influence that business metric. And that is also, so that brings me to the second part, which is the tools and technology. So what is the set of data assets, the technology, the type of tools, whether, depending on which stage in the maturity you are and what's the plan in scaling AI, what are those set of tools and technologies that you need to have, and do everyone have access to it and know how to use that? Do they have the guidelines around how to leverage those technology and tools or not? So that's absolutely crucial pillar. Then obviously comes your people and skill, and again looking at that pillar, you can look into what is the current capability or skills that exist in the team, and looking at where I want to be, where I want the team and the business and the in terms of progress in our initiatives to be, and what are the set of skills. So skills come into place, but even the size of the team come into the play, the mix of the skills and roles in the team come into play for that matter, as well as making sure that there is a level of learning and development targeted for the people to stay on track and progress and grow. The fourth piece which comes into play is the governance. So it could be looked at from the operating model, how we work within the team and with others, and how we structure our delivery teams, but also it expands to data governance as well. So topics around how we make sure data quality is maintained and uplifted, how we embed data governance practices within the projects and processes, and topics such as AI ethics and public privacy, and all of that comes into play. I think regardless of what stage in the maturity the team is, these four pillars, or that one overarching business value plus the three enablement pillars, comes into play very nicely, whether you are at the beginning or whether you are at the scaling phase. Again, looking into these four pillars is an important part of the strategy, I think, that I look at.
Yeah, really interesting. And I think that there's often Well, what I like about your approach is that very you're very articulate in describing the importance of a strategy and how to do a strategy correct, in the sense that sometimes people, I feel that sometimes people might want to change one part of their working lives, say introduce a new technology or bring in a new governance process, or bring in some training. For example, they want to change something in isolation. And sometimes they find some organizational resistance to it, and that's because in general there should be, as you've done so well, there should be an overarching plan that naturally is going to involve some trade-offs and push those trade-offs down to some degree. So I just wanted to point that out to say that I think that the strategy that you've put together is really comprehensive from that perspective, and encourage people to think about a broader piece when looking at improvements in specific areas, because it does need to, when there is a strategy, things do need to fit together and harmonize in order to create and drive that business value. And as you were describing the strategy, we had a couple of questions come in. One of them was around challenges that you're facing with the data strategy. Obviously, anything that you can share about, because I really like how you described that, the fact that you're covering where you are today, where you would like to go as an organization, what are the steps to get there, and maybe in some of those aspirations or next steps, is only if there is anything that you can share. What are some of the challenges that you see coming up, or areas to focus on?
Yeah, sure. I guess as I mentioned earlier, the challenges come in play when sorry, there's one poll coming. Let me take it away. So the challenges come in play when specifically when people are not clear what we are trying to achieve and what business outcome we are trying to aim for. And I've found it over time, when that is becoming clear, then it's easier to bring people along the journey. Mm-hmm. And I mean, basically help people to appreciate what is that we're going to achieve, why it's important, because that's, directly ladder up to this business objective that all of us are working towards. And then in order to get there, what are the steps, or what do we need? And basically framing it that way, whether it's getting support from the, central functions, from technology, from, is that a funding support or whatever it is, I think framing it that way would always help in making it happen. Obviously, another point that could be sometimes challenging is that you are reliant on a lot of other functions to make you achieve. So basically, you need to coordinate, or basically it's like orchestration of a lot of activities, a lot of teams that are not in your direct control, but actually are absolutely key to success of the plan and of the strategy. So that often is something very crucial and could be challenging if priorities mismatch a little bit, or there are capability gaps that are not to your business area to solve, but more for the broader or central function or other teams to bring in a capability that is not fast enough coming to. It doesn't come to you in a pace that you need to make a tangible progress on your strategy as you plan. So those are the things that at time could be challenging. But again, I think staying well engaged with all the parts or stakeholders involved in or enabling that strategy, as well as your user group. So who is going to, at the end of the day, use your solutions, and obviously just just building those and putting things in production is not going to change or shift any dial on your business outcome. Who is going to use that, engaging that end user or operation or whoever is going to be the user of that analytic or AI solution to make a difference in terms of the business objectives need to be definitely engaged and involved early on and regularly.
Yeah, that's a great point. And definitely, brings up a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you about the approach in scaling AI and barriers. But before we jump into that, I wanted to remind people we have the poll open. We'll leave it open for a couple more minutes. So far, we've had almost 70% of people answer the poll. So if you can take, for the people that haven't had a chance yet, if you can take a moment and to answer the poll, there should be a pop-up on your phone or your computer. If not, it's at the bottom of the Zoom window. If you move your mouse over the bottom of the Zoom window, there'll be a bar that comes up and there'll be a poll button in there. If you can take a moment to answer the poll, and then we'll go through the results with Moha. And in the meantime, Moha, could you tell us about your approach in scaling AI? How do you think about it?
Sorry. Scaling AI actually can be interpreted in at least two different ways, right? So looking at scaling AI in the way that it is ubiquitous. It's not just one business area or one business problem that you're using AI for, but it's something that is multiple areas across the business. They are aware of it. There are opportunities identified and tested, and use cases are being implemented. So that's basically expanding the span of AI application across the business. Whereas another way to look at scale is when actually you expanded the application of AI and you have multiple use cases, multiple models in productions, how you're going to make sure that you manage the life cycle of the AI or analytic or machine learning solution in an efficient and robust manner, from data ingestion pipeline to ETL to model build, data drift or retrain inference, and the basically life cycle of your machine learning solution, how you want to do it in an automated and efficient manner. So on that first view of horizontally basically scaling AI, what is, I think, important is it might take a little bit of education, but also a bit of a showcasing and demonstration of how AI could be useful or data science could be useful in different parts of the business, which are not necessarily classic examples of AI. So basically getting people a bit more comfortable around it and thinking of opportunities and what could be done using AI. And again, very important is to have the clear pathway from exploring AI to actually realizing the value, to putting things in production and actually start using value. Because if I, as a business, decision, if I don't see where I'm going to get from just exploring and something nice to have cool, results, but I have no clue or no way to get it in production or in a way to make me change or improve or influence any of the business outcome, then obviously it's not promoting or it's not good for scaling AI at all. And when it comes to you do have a few models that you want to manage and want to make sure are managed efficiently and in a robust manner. Then again, when you have as a organization, if you have multiple use cases, you have expanded the application of AI, there are differences between the use cases that you have. You might have a marketing predictive model generating lead, but has to be actioned by your frontline contact center. So you're basically limited by that. So if you run it based on the capacity there is every month, that's good enough for your purpose. Whereas when you have, in our example of price prediction platform, you ingest data intraday, you need to maintain and maintain that most accurate level of accuracy for your prediction and provide it real time or near real time to customers. Because obviously there are different considerations in how you scale and implement and architect that level of automated testing and automated pipeline for your machine learning solution. But I would say the principles would still remain the same, in a sense that you want to, rather than being needing a human or a person to check and to retrain, to put models in production, to test it, to validate it, have an automated pipeline to do that. Having said so, technology, so it's all about how you do things from the technical perspective, if I summarize it. But actually, again, the key part to scale AI, meaning that your first use case is not your last one, and you keep building and you keep getting traction on it and bringing more models and more AI to the business, is not only to look at your internal model and pipeline metrics such as accuracy, coverage, or whatever, but also you bring in and actively measure progress against those business outcomes that you're aiming to shift the dial on by leveraging that AI solution. So that's absolutely important. And another point is adoption and embedding things in the business processes, and that could actually take different formats depending on what you do, and even steps in the your automated pipeline of, let's say, take the automated testing. It is different how I do automated testing in the context of, let's say, price prediction, whereas once the property is sold, I get the sold price and I can calculate how accurate my model was, right? So that was in automating that piece. Whereas if I'm implementing a process, a machine learning to do document processing within the operation space, which is very heavily manual. Basically, operator used to do A, B, C, and D, and I'm asking them A and B, machine learning is doing for you, you just do C and D. And then I sit there and check measures of accuracy, coverage, whatever, it's all looking perfect, whereas my business style doesn't change. And you go and look at and see, for example, I'm just making an example that the operator actually, even though machine learning is doing A and B, operator is doing A and B again. So they didn't change what they do, either because they don't trust that machine, or they are not informed. They haven't been educated that your role, your tasks has changed now. So I think what I want to make the point is that change management, that operationalizing your solutions within the business processes, that's the key to actually, is the last piece of the puzzle to scale AI, without which you could do one or two, but actually you're not realizing the benefit and the value of AI, and hence it leads to disappointment and not actually getting that far.
That's excellent. That's great. And through that, we had a question from Conrad that I think you answered during your description there. So the question was, how important is for AI to be a living system, essentially where models are retrained and it's constantly learning? And then, from your description, he came back and put a comment to say, I think it does have to be a living system. Is that right, in line with your views?
Yes, definitely. And I think often is the case that the machine learning algorithm, the nature of it is that with more data, with feedback loop, it gets better. So for example, in all the examples that I shared, including that operational space, so when you have that pilot group and people are, providing feedback to machine learning, you get the data and retrain model, and that's the idea of improving it as more feedback comes in.
Yeah,
so that's definitely a living and growing and improving.
Right? Yeah, that's excellent. The way that I like to think about it and describe it to business executives, I usually say you wouldn't leave your staff untrained for a year or 2 years, and it's the same with the machine learning model. So it needs to be constantly being retrained and learning in order to perform. Also, through your answer, we had a comment from Michael Brandt saying, "Well said, Moha." So that's great. I did want to, I'll say that we've had about just over 80% of people have answered the poll. So that's great. We'll do one more question and then we'll jump into the poll answers. What I wanted to ask you, Moha, is on the flip side of scaling AI. So we spoke about the approach of scaling, but what do you see as the barriers that get in the way of scaling AI?
Yeah. Look, depending on which type of data landscape or organizational use cases you have, could be different barriers or challenges to scaling AI. In traditional and landscape of data and traditional businesses, often you find legacy systems and technology being a barrier. And hindering the journey to scale AI. Obviously, the constraints, less flexibility of the legacy systems. The other point could be data quality. If you cannot trust your data, it's not of a acceptable quality that is suitable for the purpose of the machine learning or the model that you're going to build, then that it can become a real challenge. Having data more broadly, and by that I don't mean any data relevant to your use case and data that you are ethically allowed to use, is also, it's another consideration. Basically, you need to have that data, quality data, available that you can ethically use to be able to run your or feed into your pipeline or AI solution. What else? Talent. It's a very high demand on data science and AI talent and data engineers these days. At times, depending on your timelines and basically the goal of your project, not having access to the right talent or right number of talents of our skills could be hindering a path to scaling AI. And I mentioned this multiple times. I think the amount of or the importance of business adoption and embedding the AI solutions into business processes is absolutely crucial. So if you don't do that, obviously, if you don't do that well, and you don't put the planning and preparation and the effort it takes in place, you're not gonna receive or observe any realization of value out of it against your business outcomes, and that by itself would question your next use case. I mean, what have we achieved so far using AI that we want to do another model or improve our current model? So that is absolutely important part, which sometimes get really underestimated, the importance of it and the challenges that could come if it's not done properly.
So true. So true. Really good points there. And we also had a comment from Alec. Hey, mate. And he was talking about exactly your last point there around that we can have the path to productions and the right platforms and technology, but we also need to be focusing on the right areas and making sure that the work is actually being used, so that the development is being done in areas of high impact, but then that also that high impact is being obtained by the business through the use and adoption. So that's really great. Okay, I'll stop the poll now and I'll share the answers, share the results, and we can go through the results. So everyone should be able to see the results now. And the first question was, do you have a method or approach to prioritize machine learning work? And it was almost 50-50. Wow. So 51% of people said no, they don't have an approach to prioritize machine learning work. What are your thoughts, Mo? I know that you've done some work on providing some prioritization approaches, maybe a framework. What can you share with us from that perspective?
Sure. So look, at the end of the day, again, it comes down to what value we're going to get from our use case, AI use case or solution. What value in terms of our key business objectives and business metrics. What is the value we're going to get out of it? And so if you look at it as one axis, the other one is what's the effort and cost or time required to get there. The other point is around, which is related to that cost or time or effort, but slightly different, is feasibility of it. How feasible is it with the landscape that we have, or with the regulatory, for example, lens on it, or with the let's say ethical perspectives, or how feasible it is, even if it's giving us lots of value and we have the data, it's feasible, it's easy to do, but can we actually do it? Is it feasible? Should we be doing that? So that's basically, you look into what are those key objectives and what are those use cases that are giving you the most value in a shorter or in a less costly manner. There is a caveat to it. So there are use cases or there are areas that you do want to build capability. So even though from that first project you may not get the full value, but that would enable you enable multiple use cases that then would allow you or bring you a significant business value. So when we talk about value and cost, there need to be another lens to it, which is the capability and enablement type of projects. And obviously, after you kind of take into consideration all of that, there is a point around sequencing some of the initiatives that naturally need to be sequenced to give us basically the value, the maximum value, or dependencies that are there, which again related to that enablement or capability build functions. So that's in a nutshell how I look at prioritizing.
That's great. That's really good. We have a related question from Sri. Hey, Sri. And the question is, how do we and how can we evaluate the value that the model can bring? This is often contested from a business perspective. What do you see as some approaches that you use or that you've seen work well? Some of the ones that Sri mentions in his questions is Gartner Infonomics, qualitative and quantitative methods. There's usually a lot of or he feels that there's usually a lot of debate in this space. What are your thoughts on evaluating the value of models, Moha?
Yeah, sure. So, one way to look at it is basically value. Again, when I say value, it has to be against some commonly agreed and accepted business objectives, something that is valuable from our perspective, whereas it's not anywhere in the strategy or aligned with the business objectives and the goals of the business, then that's obviously hard to justify the value itself inherently. So the alignment with the objectives of the business is very important. It could be either, reducing cost, increasing revenue, growing the book, or reducing turnaround time, for example, our example of operations. It all could be examples of the value. Often when you are doing that prioritization, obviously you are in a stage that you haven't seen any of the values, more in the estimation mode, right? So you do a educated estimate. You either use the data available to size the opportunity. So for example, I'm just making up an example that I am going to, this use case is gonna automate or straight through the process of a set of applications, home loan applications, who are with these specific characteristics. Then I go and look at what's that type of applications, what's the proportion? So that's 10% of my overall book or overall incoming applications, and what's the value in ready or straight through that, and basically meaning that in real time we can process those applications, and from there you basically tie that back to the key metrics, whether it's the farm, whether it's the conversion, or whatever out of that basically example you can ladder up to the key business areas. Another way that in examples can work is when you basically put that idea in a test. So you have your pilot, and again, for this, better not to do just proof of concept, but better to do pilot, because pilot is you put it in the real world, but in a smaller scale, and you actually see all the challenges with the implementation, integration, with all the how you're going to manage your model, as well as how the user actually takes time to ramp up in using that or in a new way of working or augmented way of working, and then in basically real world you can gather data for a period of time to see what was the value or what was the improvement that the model has brought in, and that is basically a very good proxy to see what is that bigger value, and often hard to when it's data, when it is tested, and when it is not just in isolation but in a pilot, meaning that it's actually the real, a smaller, part of the it's the same process, but you kind of embedded this in a smaller scale. Using that data and evidence often provides a good basis to get the buying and convince the stakeholders.
That's great. That is excellent. I really like that, because sometimes, we talk about the two ends of the spectrum. We talk about POCs and we talk about models in production at scale. And often we don't discuss the stages in between. And I think that highlighting the value of a pilot and obviously the impact of getting to a pilot quickly and being able to have a pathway to pilot can increasingly or can dramatically increase the value of the AI efforts. As a related question, we had from Kaush, the question is, what are your thoughts on measuring the business value of models in production and on an ongoing manner? So in terms of the impact that they can create once they're live. Do you have any thoughts on that side?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, as I mentioned, it's absolutely important not only to look at those internal model metrics, but how it is actually helping or influencing the business outcome. First of all, important to really be specific and choose the right metrics that this use case is able to influence. Not to be too generic or not to be too specific that is not actually, it's lost within the scale and the schema of things. And the challenging part could be, especially in the area that, let's say, is a main pain point, and there's multiple different initiatives are trying to address that same problem, and they go live pretty much around the same time. I mean, there doesn't have to be all of them being AI solution, but basically influencing that same business outcome that you are influencing, which, I mean, it can happen a lot of times because it's obviously, we don't do things in isolation. But again, having the a combination of approaches to be able to associate the change in those business outcome to the specific use cases is a bit of a science and art sometimes, to put in, not only see the numbers. I'll tell you example. I mean, we're doing automation, right? All of the sudden, if for some reason application volume goes down, all the SLAs will be back without us doing anything. So should that tell us, oh, okay, all our automation actually all of a sudden worked because our SLA went down? So that's why I'm saying not just looking at one business metric, but also a set of complementary metrics that together can show you, can demonstrate the different aspects of the value being perceived or being delivered. Is very important.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much. Going back to the poll results, on question 2 was do you have an automated monitoring of ML models in production? And we had 78% of people said no, that they don't have automated monitoring in production at the moment. What are your thoughts there, Moha?
I mean, it's not that surprising, but that stats. But I think more and more, I think the direction will be more and more of this needed in the future. And obviously, there's a journey to build that capability and get there. Again, depending on the type of data you're using, the platforms, the type of business sort of problem you're working on, that could influence how you do that. I mean, in our case, we have got some of our data on cloud, so that's a different sort of more flexible way of putting in place those monitoring at scale. And for our price prediction in particular is publicly available data. So on cloud, it's a flexible architecture, automated testing, monitoring, all of that in place for multiple models in production. Whereas other use cases on-prem, obviously with the sensitivity of the data, a lot of our data is still, or operations are still on-prem. And that's a different approach to build that monitoring, which is we are improving on that aspect as well on-prem, putting things in automated CI/CD pipeline, automated testing, automated monitoring. And that's absolutely key in areas that you really need to make sure the model is performing as expected, and with the accuracy that is acceptable, especially in areas that are more so in the operation or in the making it not necessarily a decision, but making a step into the process that feed into the next step. So you basically need to have, there's no other point. You can't sitting there, you're basically, the whole idea of introducing machine learning or AI is doing things more efficiently. So you can't afford to put someone manually doing that. So it has to be a level of automation in there. And as a bank, obviously, more use cases. It's not just home loan. There are other areas that say it makes more sense to have that capability across the bank built. But I appreciate not all organizations are at the same stage of their journey. So it's not unexpected that.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people are or I think this is where Australia is at the moment. In general, organizations are working at ways and better ways to put models into production and to have automated monitoring and scale, which is great. We only have, I can't believe an hour has gone past so quickly. So we only have a couple minutes left. For the last two questions, obviously these were topics that we covered in the discussion. But in terms of limitation to scaling AI, the top three was legacy systems, closely followed by talent, including education and training. And then the third one was the path to production, as we were just talking there. And I'll mention the fourth one and then get your thoughts, Moha. The last one was, do you find embedding of AI in business processes a challenge in your organization? And 74% of people said yes, that was a big challenge. Any thoughts or surprises there, Moha?
No, I think that's a theme we have been, I think, touching on a couple of times during this talk. So that by itself tells the story that it often is a very crucial part in the process that could be challenging at times, and definitely could be negatively impacting the scale of AI if it is not done properly. So I leave that there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can't believe how quickly the hour has gone by. Moha, what can I say? This has been brilliant. Obviously I knew it was going to be great, knowing how the type of professional that you are, but it's been really excellent having you on the show, getting your thoughts and perspectives. And I really like the way you think about problems and the structure that you bring to them, and everything is thought with really good structure from a high level, but with a lot of detail across every topic. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your perspectives, and I think it's been extremely valuable for everyone who's been listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to the audience for the participation in the calls and chats and being engaged with us today. Thank you.
Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope that you got a lot out of this discussion. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find out about the challenges that leaders have in the analytics and AI space. And that's what we're trying to share in Data Futurology. So please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Thank you so much.